Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, March 29th. This is episode 102 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Thank you as always for joining us. Make sure to please like and subscribe here on YouTube. Another week of the NFL offseason is in the books, and we're here to discuss all of the latest around the NFL. As we continue to get closer to the NFL draft, a little less than a month away from now. We're almost into April. This is our last show of March. So March is just about in the rear view here. Free agency well in the rear view. We now fully get into draft season, all of the rumors, all of the hot takes, some of them bad, some of them good. A lot of bad, though, this time of year when it comes to some of these draft takes, as analysts are just trying to make headlines, trying to stir the pot, if you will. In terms of the draft conversations around a lot of these prospects, because you talk about these prospects for months and months and months, and a lot of the conversations are the same. So you get a lot of takes to try and change things up just to throw a wrench into things. So we'll dive into some of that. Pro days are in full swing. We'll also dive into some early predictions for 2026. You know, we're getting closer to off-season workouts. We're getting closer to the draft. You're starting to feel the rookie mini camp here in a little over a month. You'll get OTAs fully in swing in May. So little by little here, we're starting to get back into the swing of things, at least in terms of some on-the-field activity throughout the NFL as we've kind of gotten out of the earliest part of the offseason. But DiMari, how's it going? We're just counting down the days to the draft, last pot of April. How's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah.
Or last pot of March, I should say.
Last part of March, Wednesday starts April, and we are officially in draft month. And like you said, sooner or later here, we're going to start seeing some guys take the field. And I can't wait. You mentioned some of the takes that have kind of circulated NFL news, NFL topics, some analysts just throwing out some crazy things. Like you said, 4 headlines, but it gets a bit interesting. It makes you pay more attention to the draft. It kind of makes you pay more attention to preseason, and it kind of throws out those mini rivalries that might become something that aren't right now. And we'll get into a few of those takes a little later on, but for those who are pretty big on ESPN, First Take, all that stuff, you might know what we're getting at with that. But other than that, been a pretty slow week, so just some draft prep stuff is going to be great, considering not much happened this week outside of JSN. Congrats to JSN for a master contract extension. Well deserved for him, but other than that, yeah, we got a lot to get into today. Just some bold takes and predictions for this season coming up. So let's get into it.
Yeah, 100%. Good for JSN to get that contract extension. Well deserved, coming off of obviously a massive season and a season that ended with a Super Bowl as well. The most important part of all that, the 4-year, $168.6 million deal for Seattle. So the Darnold JSN connection will continue well beyond just 2025 as we look ahead to 2026. But yeah, we'll start with some coaches under the most pressure in 2026. We'll also dive into some way too early bold predictions for the 2026 season. And then we'll dive into some of the latest around the pro days. We'll get to some of the preposterous takes surrounding Ty Simpson and Fernando Mendoza, because now all of a sudden we think that Ty Simpson's the #1 quarterback in this draft. And by all means, please persuade the Raiders to take Simpson at 1 so the Jets could take Mendoza at 2. I'm fully on board with that. If that's, the motive behind all this, by all means, go ahead. The Raiders have been known for making some questionable moves in the draft and taking guys that you don't expect to be taken in their spots. So we'll see. We all know, though, Mendoza the consensus one. But we'll dive into all that a little bit later on. But we'll start here with some coaches under the most pressure here in 2026. And it was funny, we were talking about this off air. There's a lot. I think we both have around 4 to 5. My list is probably maybe even a little bit longer. Not necessarily guys that are going to get fired if they have bad seasons, but guys that if they have down years again, the seat's going to start to get a little bit warm. And that's saying something for some of these coaches, because if you would have told me a year ago, some of the names that I'll bring up in this show, that we'd be even talking about them in a conversation of seeing pressure, I think we probably would have thought that either of us were crazy. So we'll start with the obvious ones, though. I guess I'll toss it over to you. If you want to begin here, we'll go down each list and talk about these different coaches. So I guess for you, we'll kind of go down, no particular order, but throw out a name there. one coach under pressure in 26 to win some games and avoid potentially getting canned?
First, before I get into my first guy, thank you for bringing that up. This is not guys that we're saying is going to get fired, but you just look at some of the moves or lack of moves that's made during this offseason and some teams with higher expectations. And there's teams out there that probably didn't do enough that were supposed to be contenders this year and fell short, and supposed to be contenders next year and might not be. So again, not guys that will absolutely get canned, but high potential of that if things don't pan out. So there's a decent list, like you said. Number one for me is going to be Todd Bowles. Tampa. Tampa's a tricky team. I mean, this is a team where you look at it, and if you look at, just say you're a box score watcher, and you look, and you're like, well, they've won the division 3 times. Why would he be on the hot seat? You look at those records, though. We're talking about 8-9. We're talking about 9-8. We're talking about 10-7. Tampa obviously losing Mike Evans to San Francisco this offseason puts more pressure on Baker, puts more pressure on this team. And this is a Tampa team. I mean, last season we're talking about 6-2, one of the best teams in the league, and you went 2-7 to end the year. Terrible losses, by the way. You lose to the Saints. Weren't even trying to win. You lose to the Dolphins. Nobody should lose to the Dolphins. I don't even think my dad's Little League team would have lost to the Dolphins last year. So some of these games that Tampa dropped really put Todd Bowles in the hot seat. And I think this season, if they don't make the playoffs and if they don't win double-digit games, I think Todd Bowles has a high potential of being out of there.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I had Bowles on my list as well. You look at, and I'm glad that you brought up some of the division titles for this Tampa team, because we've all known and we've joked about it for a while, but it's the truth how bad the NFC South is. And the Bucs have been the leaders of that very bad division, going back to 2023, where they only won 9 games but won the division. Then you go to 2024, they did win 10 games, but the teams behind them, there was not another team in that division above 500. Falcons were 8-9. Carolina and New Orleans were at the basement with 5 wins. And in this year, you had an 8-9 winner. And it's crazy to think, and I'm glad you brought up the 6-2 start. They were 6-2 to open up the season. And it's crazy to think that if you would have told any Bucs fan, because they had that week 9 bye week, so they went into their bye week 6-2. If you would have told any Bucs fan that the winner of the division, all you would need was 8 wins and the tiebreaker, Bucs fans would have signed up for that any day of the week. Instead, they lost the tiebreaker. They finished 8-9. Carolina gets in over them, and there were some really bad losses. Not to mention those New Orleans and Atlanta games, both at home. Atlanta on Thursday night primetime, you let Kirk Cousins go in there and beat you up. You let Raheem Morris go in there and win. And that's a coach that got fired. It's a coach that eventually obviously got canned. So there was some really bad losses. They got blown out against Detroit, which, come to find out as the year went on, they obviously didn't have their best season in a while. Post Ben Johnson, the first year without him, it was ugly for that offense. They missed the playoffs. So yeah, there was some ugliness. I mean, even the Rams game, I know they were depleted. I know the injuries really hurt them. Baker had his fair share of injuries. You had the Mike Evans injury, Godwin as well. And that's another thing too. You just look at what's taken place with this roster. You lose Mike Evans. How you expect to just bounce back and win 10 games this year after losing him like that? So I'm right there with you with Bowles. And I've always said this. I never thought Bowles was a very good coach, even when they were winning. There was things that Bowles would do in games that you just question. I mean, I even go back to week 3 against the Jets. He did everything in his power to let the Jets win that game. He blitzed, I think it was 60% of the time in the first half. Second half, I think it was only like 30%. And the Jets started to crawl back into that game. If the Jets defense wasn't terrible, they would have won that game. So the Bucs, there was a couple games where they handed them to their opponents and was begging them to win games, and a few of the teams took advantage of that. So I'm right there with you with Bowles. In terms of one of my coaches, Zach Taylor. I'm going to throw Zach Taylor in here from Cincy. I think, honestly, you can make the case that he might be under the hottest seat, or I shouldn't say under, on the hottest seat in the NFL right now. And the Bengals are just a very interesting team. They're one of the more interesting teams in the league because they've got all the talent in the world. They've got the star quarterback. They've got the 2-star receivers. They got everything you need on offense. Defensively, they're a joke. Last season, right, they fire Lou Anarumo. He leaves. And we said this last year. I remember we did an episode on this, that was kind of the start of the clock beginning to tick on Zach Taylor. You fire the defensive coordinator. Okay, that's a little bit of the scapegoat. You bring in a new DC. The defense still was awful last year. You then lose Trey Hendrickson this offseason. Now, you did go out and get Boye Mafe, I believe that's how you pronounce the name, from Seattle, who obviously was a part of that Seattle Super Bowl defense. So you bring him in. Is he on the level of Trey Hendrickson? No, but he is a quality, solid defensive end. But you lose Trey Hendrickson, which you lose him to the division, and you just look around the division with the pass rushers that are in there, even without Max Crosby. Now you face Trey Hendrickson twice a year on top of Myles Garrett and TJ Watt already. But defensively, the Bengals are just a mess. And this is a team that's, I don't really care how bad the defense is. This is a team that's too talented to have just 9 wins in 23, 9 wins in 24, and 6 wins last year. This team is way too good to be missing the playoffs 3 years in a row. And I understand he made the Super Bowl. I understand the year after that, they were just minutes away from making another Super Bowl. But that's, to me, way too far in the distance now. If this Bengals team doesn't make the playoffs this year and it's an ugly 5-6 win season like it was last year, and I understand Burrow has been banged up, I get all that. But if you're telling me Burrow's healthy, which he was for 24, he threw 43 touchdowns and you mustered up 9 wins. So Zach Taylor, to me, is on the hot seat. And I think anything less than the playoffs, he's gone.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I'm so glad you threw out the 3 straight seasons of missing the playoffs, because teams are you look back at it and you're like, well, this team is so good with Burrow. This team is so good when healthy. This team is good when. This team is good if. That's the problem. There's too many wins. There's too many ifs. I mean, with a quarterback like Joe Burrow and arguably the two best wide receivers in football, one of the better duos in football, why did a quarterback throw 42 touchdowns and you only had 9 wins? I mean, I think that's going to be a problem. And for Cincinnati, a lot of the issue with the wins as well and not getting enough wins, you can't start these seasons out 0-2, 0-3, 1-3, whatever the case is, and you're losing to teams that you should completely just blow out the water every time you play them. So I think those slow starts are such a catalyst to like the lack of success that you're putting so much pressure on Joe Burrow at the end of the year when he's healthy, and you're expecting to be Super Joe and throwing a cape. Like, you're not going to win NFL games like that. You're not going to be successful and get into the playoffs like that. I mean, luckily enough, you had to run the one time. You guys started out slow and you went on a stretch of games and you snuck to the playoffs. That's not going to happen no more, because you're not one of those teams that's going to sneak up on teams. People year in and year out, ever since that Super Bowl appearance, are expecting you to be in the playoffs. They are expecting you to be a top 4 seed in the playoffs. So I'm kind of right there with you, where like they don't make the playoffs. I think he's gone after this year. I don't think this is going to be a mid-season firing if he gets canned, because ownership is too cheap to fire him and, be paying a coach that's not actively working for them. But I mean, this team, I'm repeating myself now and I'm repeating you, way too talented, so much talent on the offensive side to constantly see themselves not even playing when football matters the most.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And when you have Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins all in the middle of their primes, you got to do a lot better than just 2 playoff appearances and no playoff appearances in the last 3 years. And we'll see what happens this season. And look, it's not an easy division, obviously. You've got Baltimore and Pittsburgh, who are always in the mix at the top. Say what you want about Pittsburgh winning 9 or 10 games. They're still always in the mix. Now, Cleveland's a dumpster fire for the most part, but let's be honest. I mean, record-wise, Cleveland and Cincinnati were not that far off. Since he won 6 games, Cleveland won 5. That's how bad it's been. That's how bad it was last year for Cincinnati. And again, I get all that of, oh, Burrow only played 8 games, all this stuff. Great. And you had to bring in Flacco and all that stuff. Excellent. But when Burrow was healthy in 24, threw 43 touchdowns, he won 9 games. So the whole Burrow injury excuse last year, to me, doesn't fly with Zach Taylor, because you had an MVP caliber quarterback. You've had an MVP caliber quarterback, and you haven't gotten it done. So that's where things stand with Cincy. And I just feel like they haven't made enough of an effort, and this is front office stuff, to improve the defense. It just doesn't feel like they're doing enough with the defense. Like, the defense, you still look at it, it's going to probably be awful again. It's just, I don't know. It feels very just doesn't feel very good. I feel like we're in for another 38-35. Bengals are going to lose a ton of games that way this year.
Yeah, man, we've jokingly said the past 2 seasons, like this team has to score 48 and I hope they only give up 46 to win games. And that's not the recipe every single week. So that's going to be the problem with Cincy. And I mean, it kind of just seems like they can never piece everything together. One season it's okay, the offensive line is terrible. Joe Burrow's getting hit too much. Offensive line gets a little bit of a retooling. Now Joe Burrow can't stay healthy. Joe Burrow's hurt. Okay, great. The offensive line is decent. Joe Burrow's decent. Now your defense sucks, and the defense can't get it together. It's like for some odd reason, they cannot all play on the same 3 levels of football. Defense, offense, special teams. Like there's always something in that organization where things go wrong. So it kind of almost seems like this team is not meant to win it. Because, again, the talent, too much talent, and there's always something that kind of just stabs them in the back at the end of the season or the beginning of the season with the slow starts again that halts them from getting to their full potential.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So there's Zach Taylor. Who do you got next?
This one's crazy. This one's kind of crazy, but I kind of feel like if you pay attention to the news that goes on, you understand where I'm coming from. And I think that's Nick Sirianni. And I say that's crazy because, I mean, this guy hasn't had a losing record as a head coach. He's been successful as a head coach. They have won a Super Bowl. They win games. But this organization right now, everything going on with the Eagles, kind of just feels like a slow pipe leak, just dripping and dripping. And that drip is A.J. Brown. It's the issue with A.J. Brown right now. And just some of the things you see during the season, the fan base calling for his job. Obviously, Patullo is gone now, so that was a big part of why the fans wanted Sirianni gone as well. But it's just like a slow drip for this Eagles organization that eventually that pipe is just going to burst completely. And I think they're at that point. And it's a weird, again, because this is a guy just coming off a Super Bowl win not too long ago. But for a fan base that's never happy, I think if they start off slow or they kind of not even start off slow because they haven't really started off slow. They're winning games. They just fizzle out at the end of the year. They start to look very bad after their bye week typically and kind of just stink it up and limp their way into the playoffs. I honestly think, and this might be giving away one of my bold takes, sorry, if the Eagles do miss the playoffs, like I think they will do, I think Nick Sirianni is in a very good chance of getting fired 27-28 if another repeat of a terrible season. I just think he's lost the fan base, too much over these last few years. And just everything with A.J. Brown, I think we are starting to see the beginning of the end for Philly and, like, their dynasty.
Yeah, this Philly team with all the drama, I mean, we've talked about it a lot with the drama and all the things that have gone on. And by the way, I agree with you and Sirianni. I also kind of had him. I had him like a little bit more on the outside too. Like, I don't know if his seat's raging hot, but I could definitely see where he's fired. Eagles fans wanted his head last season. They were last year with Kevin Patullo, that disaster after they move on from Kellen Moore. There was people calling for him to be fired last year because they think he's a product of the offensive coordinators and not so much himself. And that's the same that goes for Hurts as well. That's the criticism with Hurts. He's more of a product of the OC and not he's had a different OC every single year. Kellen Moore obviously was excellent. They switched to Patullo. It was a disaster. So I'm right there with you with Nick Sirianni. Anytime you go through these OC changes as much as they have, the pressure in Philly, the fact that they lost in the wild card game last year after winning 11 games, last season felt a lot like, or I should say, it kind of feels like 2023 Eagles. We're in for a potential 2023 Eagles type of season where they might make the playoffs, but there's a good chance they might lose the wild card again. And it's going to be more drama. Fans are going to start to get really impatient with Hurts, really impatient with Sirianni. I'm right there with you. It's crazy to think that we're talking about a guy that just won the Super Bowl 2 years ago is on the hot seat, but that's just the state of things in Philly. It's a very much a year-by-year team, the Eagles, especially under Sirianni. They have gone through some really interesting stretches from making the Super Bowl in 22 to collapsing in 23 to people went into that year in 2023 people went into 2024 saying Sirianni's on the hot seat. And if you remember, they started that year off slow. They were 2-2. They had that bad loss to Atlanta early in the year. They got crushed by Tampa early that season. In 24, they ended up turning around, going on to win the Super Bowl. And 25 now kind of feels like the 2023. So maybe they turn around and go and win the Super Bowl this year. But I'm right there with you in terms of Sirianni. I think he's a guy that feels like any Eagles head coach. Right when you get hired, it feels like you're on the hot seat, honestly. And for this Eagles team, with the questions at offensive coordinator, they brought in Sean Mannion from, I believe he was Green Bay's QB's coach. You bring him in to replace Patullo. That was a Sirianni hire. If that doesn't work out, it's certainly a possibility that they're looking at a new coach next season. And who knows? Is this it for Hurts too? If Hurts has a bad year, you have to question that as well. And you make an interesting point. Maybe this is getting really crazy, but if the bottom really falls out in Philly, are you drafting a quarterback in 27?
Yeah, I think you have to. I think if you look at the QB class of 27, you bring a guy in that not necessarily is going to be the starter and take over Hurts' job, but I think you bring in a guy that's going to light a fire under Jalen Hurts. Is like, hey, there's somebody behind you that can take your job, and we will pay a lot less to get the job done because you're not getting the job done. And honestly, kind of judging Jalen Hurts is kind of so hard because it looks like pure hate watch from me being a Dallas fan. And I like Jalen Hurts. I like Jalen Hurts in college. I actually really do like Jalen Hurts. But if we're being honest, if you just look at the play on the field, it has not been the best. And I understand he played well in that Super Bowl, but if we're being so honest, Jalen Hurts is not the reason for that Super Bowl win. Jalen Hurts is not the reason for a lot of the success that team has had. It's been the run game. It's been the offensive line. It's been the limit Jalen Hurts as much as he can and let the playmakers do the rest of it. Yes, he's going to have good games. He's an NFL quarterback. Of course, he's going to go out there. There's going to be games he's going to throw for 350 and 4 touchdowns. He's capable of doing it. But I say this so many times, and I'm going to say it again. Game on the line or going into a game, if you have to trust Jalen Hurts to drop back 38 times and win you a game, he's not that guy to do that. And I think Philly needs a guy that is going to do that because you're not going to beat teams constantly running the ball like they were doing with Saquon. So I think if the bottom falls out, you have to retool and you have to get you a QB that can kind of take more control of an offense and be a better leader.
And do we think A.J. Brown's gone by week 1?
I think so. I don't know. I want to say yes. Then again, I don't know. Just because we're going to be on repeat. We're going to see the same thing over again that we saw last season.
Yeah.
So I think if you're Philly, though, you kind of understand your core and what you got. It's good enough to get you to the playoffs. You stick with it. But if we're talking about week 6 and it's the same old, you just get rid of them before it even gets to that point. And that would be before 1.
Yeah, reading books again on the sideline. And that's the funny part is they've been very hesitant to move off of McKee. And a lot of that is because Howie Roseman and the rest of that front office, they kind of feel not that he's going to necessarily be the successor to Hurts, but they see something in McKee where if the bottom does fall out with Hurts, he could also be the next guy in line. Plus, you take somebody in 27. So, yeah, the Eagles are an interesting spot. It's very hot, cold with them. You go to the Super Bowl, collapse. Super Bowl win, collapse. What do we have in store here for 26? All right, I'll throw another coach out here. Shane Steichen, former Eagle as well, I guess, if you want to throw that in the mix. Really, to be honest, him and Chris Ballard, put both of them on the hot seat. This entire regime for the Colts, put them on the hot seat. This was a team last year that, and we've said this a lot, people forget this. This was a team that was obviously 8-2, but they started to show some weaknesses prior to the Daniel Jones injury. I think the Colts themselves, honestly, have talked themselves into, once Daniel Jones got hurt, the season started to fall apart. But people conveniently leave out the fact that they were losing games prior to Daniel Jones getting hurt. They lost the Kansas City game. They lost to Houston. They were 8-4. Then he got hurt. They got blown out in that Jacksonville game. People just think, Daniel Jones got hurt, season collapsed. Season started to fall off a bit. They went on a stretch of losing, I think, 3 of 4, and then the Daniel Jones injury happened, and then the wheels really fell off, where they ended up, they were 8-2, and you end up losing 7 in a row to end the year. To me, I look at Indy, anything less than the playoffs for Steichen and Ballard, they're not back. You can't possibly bring them back if they miss the playoffs again this year. This is a team that hasn't made the playoffs since 2020. Steichen and Ballard, in their 3 years together, haven't made the playoffs. Ballard's been with the team since 2017. 2017, he had Pagano. He then brought in Frank Reich. He then fired Frank Reich. Jeff Saturday was a disaster. He then got the chance to bring in Steichen. He's got all these coaches since taking over. They've won 1 playoff game over that time. And they are now on a 5-year drought going back to 2020 with Frank Reich. Phillip Rivers was the quarterback the last time they made the playoffs. And no, I'm not talking about this year's Phillip Rivers. So I look at the Colts. You talk so much about Daniel Jones. You gave him that money. You got Jonathan Taylor. You just gave Alec Pierce the bag. You look at that team, and while I don't have a ton of faith in them, I don't have a ton of faith in Daniel Jones doing what he did through the first 10 games last year, doing that again. The Colts obviously do. And there's a reason they gave him that money. There's a reason they gave Alec Pierce the money. Like, you've got to win games. 8-9 is just not going to cut it every single year. They've gone under Steichen. They've been 9-8, 8-9, 8-9. You win another 8 games this year, that's not going to cut it. So Steichen, to me, is up there in terms of hot seat. Both of them. I think that entire regime is up. And the owners kind of talked about it. She basically said, if they don't make the playoffs, you read between the lines, they're gone. So feels like a playoff mandate in Indy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and you have to. I mean, we talk about this division being just as bad as the NFC South, and obviously it's gotten better with Houston and Jacksonville, but I think those are the 2 teams that puts more pressure on those 2 right there. You look at Houston, they got DeMeco Ryans, they got a very good defense, they have a quarterback, and who I understand Stroud has not looked good as he did his rookie season. He's done enough to get into the playoffs. So you look at them, they got their quarterback, they got their coach. Look what they're doing. You look at Jacksonville, they got their coach, their quarterback is starting now to figure it out underneath their coach. They got to the playoffs. Okay, they figured it out. If you're the coach, you're like, when is it us? Like, we keep bringing these guys as a rotating door of coaches each year. We finally have our quarterback, which we believe that we do. We have a very great running back. We have a great talent around him. We have, good weapons. It's our turn to do something. And the Colts have not done anything. So I agree with you in that division right there. Obviously, it's gotten a lot better, but it's no longer the doormat of the AFC. Like, this is a very good division. This is a competitive division where you need 11, 12 wins to get in, and they just haven't been capable of doing that. I mean, if we were talking about a team that has gotten to the playoffs and just can't get it done in the wild card of the second round, maybe this is a different conversation. But we're talking about a team constantly that should always be in the mix, at least for the division title. And the closer that you get this year, everything starts to fall apart. The injuries, unpredictable, understandable. But if they do not make a playoff game, I don't think that's enough. I think if they do not win a playoff game this year, you have to move a new direction. It's time.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, they haven't won a playoff game since you go back to 2018 when they beat the Texans, and I believe that year they got smoked by the Chiefs in the divisional round. That was the year the Chiefs ended up losing to the Patriots. That was kind of like the Andrew Luck resurgence. Remember the Andrew Luck resurgence here in 2018? They haven't won the playoff game since then. So, yeah, and the revolving door at quarterback, you feel like now you finally have. You at least paid Jones like he is your quarterback. So you got to win games. And when you're 8-2 and you collapse, like similar to Todd Bowles, when you're 6-2 and you collapse, when you're 8-2 and you collapse, it usually doesn't bode well the next season. I even go back to when the Jets were 7-4 and they lost 6 in a row with Saleh. They should have fired him on the spot. When you have a late season collapse like that usually doesn't bode well for the next season. Now, Philly, I guess, is the outlier because they did go on to win the Super Bowl the next year, even though we just talked about Sirianni being fired. But yeah, so I'm right there with you. Any other coaches on your list?
Yeah, one more, and again, might be kind of crazy, but I think Dan Campbell. I think the Dan
Yes.
Campbell experience. I think it's starting to fall apart a little bit here. This team just hasn't. I don't know. It's like all the hype has died down. You go from an NFC Championship game loss where you should have been in the Super Bowl, and I think that kind of started it. That was the beginning right there.
Yep.
The wild card loss at home to a rookie quarterback, and I understand they made the team you lost to. They made the NFC Championship. It was fluky. We're gonna call it what it is. It was a fluke run by the Commanders that year, and they just haven't looked the same. I mean, you finished 9-8 last year. You missed the playoffs, and I understand that division had gotten a lot better, obviously, with Chicago kind of coming out of nowhere. But that division was yours. You don't go from 15-2 to now you can't even get into the playoffs all of a sudden. And again, I'm not saying Dan Campbell gets fired. Obviously, as much heartbreak and disappointment that organization has dealt with before Dan Campbell has gotten there. He's done so much for that city. So I don't think they fire him considering the success that he has had. But I think if this Lions team falls short of 11 wins and they can't get into the playoffs, and we're talking about, weeks 13 through 17, and they're kind of fighting for their lives to claw into it.
Yep.
Dan Campbell could be one that, could be a guy that they potentially move on from in the next few years.
Yeah, I agree. He was kind of one of those outside ones that I had as well. Dan Campbell, for me, I'm right there with you. To me, and I don't want to, maybe I'm speaking too soon, but 1 year without Ben Johnson was a disaster. They missed the playoffs. The offense did not look the same. Dan Campbell, right now, just the way it is showing to be a coach that's more of a product of his OC than anything else. Because last season, John Morton was one and done. Now, they did bring in Drew Petzing, which is an interesting hire. He spent some time with the Cardinals last couple of years as the OC. I don't love it, but he's your new OC. Like, if the offense isn't good again this year, you feel like, and they missed the playoffs, you feel like he's got to be on the hot seat. I don't think he'll get fired after this season, but you feel like he's got to be on the hot seat and really on the hot seat in 27. But things are starting to boil a bit in Detroit. And this is a common sign of how life comes at you fast in the NFL. If you would have told anybody 2 years ago, we'd be sitting here talking about Dan Campbell, his seat being even the slightest bit warm, I think everybody would have thought we were crazy. But when you lose both coordinators, the offensive coordinator being the biggest one, he goes elsewhere, has a ton of success because we know the DC was a disaster. We don't need to talk about that the DC that he lost. In terms of losing Ben Johnson and then having to take over play calling halfway through the season away from John Morton, now you have to hire a new OC. So you're already 2 years, 2 OCs after Ben Johnson. And that's the thing too, is he had Anthony Lynn as his OC in year 1. And then he hired Ben Johnson in 2022. People forget the OC for the Lions was not Ben Johnson right from the start. Anthony Lynn was the OC in 21. He got rid of him, then promoted Ben Johnson from within. So like the 2 worst seasons he's had as head coach, Ben Johnson was not the OC. There's something to that. And maybe Drew Petzing's the right guy, but there's something to that. And people joke about it, but him saying this might have been our only shot, there is some truth to that. When you're that close to making the Super Bowl, they haven't been right since. The next year, you lose in the NLDS. Geez, I'm talking baseball. You lose in the NFC divisional round, and then the year after that, you miss the playoffs. It just continues to spiral. So I'm right there with you, and I love Dan Campbell, but there is an area where there's some pressure on him, no doubt about it. And it's a different type of pressure because there was pressure on him the last couple of years, and that was, okay, you're a cool, fun story. Now you got to turn and make this to the Super Bowl. 2023 was a cool, fun story. It's the first time that the Lions have been in the playoffs for, won a playoff game for a while, home playoff game, all that stuff, Jared Goff, all that. That was all cool, fun, the little train that could. 2024, though, when you went 15-2 in the regular season, it's like, all right, now the pressure is you got to go to the Super Bowl. Anything less than that is a failure. They lose to a rookie quarterback at home. The defense was atrocious. You then lose both coordinators. You come back, and last season you only win 9 games. The offense was a mess. So now 2026, you got to get back on track. Now, I'll throw a couple other names out there. One name that I feel like is kind of in the Dan Campbell, I guess, category would be Dan Quinn with Washington. I think there's a little bit of pressure there. This was a team that in year one, they go to the NFC Championship game. They get smoked, but the fact is they got there. They went 12-5 in year one, turning that team around right away with Jaden Daniels. Year two was a mess. You win 5 games. Jaden Daniels was hurt a ton. I think the management of Jaden Daniels and the injury was awful. They should have never even brought him back. They brought him back, then he got hurt again. Bringing Jaden Daniels back when the team was, 3-10 was a joke. They should have never did it. Then he got hurt again. So that was an issue. But quietly, Dan Quinn, to me, there's some pressure. I don't necessarily think he'll get fired after this season, but again, life comes at you fast. You had the cool, fun story in year one. Year two was awful. If you follow up this year and you win 6 games, how can you go from winning 12 games in year one and then you win 11 games combined the next 2 years and there not start to be some rumblings of, was that just a 1-year fluke, Especially if Daniels is healthy this year.
And that's the key part. I don't think that's crazy at all, because if Jaden Daniels plays all 17 games and they win 6 games, 5 games, you kind of start to look at that, NFC Championship run, and you're just like, we were never a serious team. We were never for real. No. And again, I don't think the Commanders are for real. And I know that could be a conversation for another day, so I guess maybe that leans to where I'm going with this, but they're not getting back. They aren't getting back. And inside that division, and again, this is also hypocritical and ironic, and we're just sitting here talking about Sirianni getting gone. The Eagles are still a good team. You have the Eagles in that division you have to get through. The Giants are expected to be a lot better this year with Harbaugh and Dart. Dallas is Dallas. Who knows what they're going to do? But you have a potential of 2 very good teams in that division, and then a Giants team that has the potential to be good with the right pieces there. So if we're talking about a team that wins 6 games and they are dead last in that division, everyone's healthy, you start to look at Dan Quinn and you consider bringing another guy, maybe a promotion, within. But I don't think he can stink it up this year, and, all the faith is still around him and what he's done.
And I also have to throw this out there too, because this is similar to the Daniel Jones Colts conversation. Jaden Daniels only played 7 games. He only started 7 games last year. They were 2-5 in those 7 games. This isn't like Jaden Daniels. They were 5-2. Daniels went down and they finished 6-11. No, they were not good when Jaden Daniels was out there. This team was awful to open up the season. Even when Jaden Daniels was playing, they were losing games. They had that loss to Atlanta early in the year. They lost to Green Bay. They beat the Giants. They beat the Raiders, and they beat the Chargers. Great. You beat 2 terrible teams. The 2 wins with Daniels, or I should say, because I don't think Daniels played that Raiders game. The 2 wins with Daniels were the Giants and the Chargers. Chargers, good win. Giants, you played Russell Wilson. And I'm not trying, it wins a win. I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but fact of the matter is they got blown out against Dallas. They got blown out against Seattle. These were all games that Jaden Daniels was starting in. So that to me also leads me to believe that more so 24 was a fluke, where even when Daniels was playing last year, they just flat out weren't good. And I'll be honest, they're not incredibly talented. And that was one of the craziest parts of that 24 team is you looked at the roster, it was a lot of old guys, but they were winning games and it was working. The receiving core, right? Terry McLaurin, fine. But outside of that, Luke McCaffrey, I know they had Treylon Burks last year. I don't know. It's not a great roster. The running back room's not great. You feel like maybe they could be in the market for Jeremiah Love, but it's really not a great team.
At all. I thought they signed a receiver this offseason. I could be wrong.
They may have. I could be forgetting.
I could be wrong, but even if they did, whoever they signed, you didn't sign Jamar Chase. It doesn't matter. The talent is bad. And you look at some
it was Diami Brown.
So that's,
and they also brought in Van Jefferson. But we're talking. I mean, Van Jefferson was a third option on the Titans last year?
A 3 or 4 option.
I mean, come on. You can't crack Tennessee's wide receiver room. You know, that's not a needle mover.
And I mean, just looking back at 24, I guess you understand why, even because the roster wasn't much better in 24. I can understand where the hype around Jaden Daniels came to lead a bunch of not so great guys, older guys specifically, to an NFC championship. But you keep saying this phrase today where life comes at you fast in the NFL, and that's what it is. One season, you're going to look great, and everyone loves your story. Look at the Commanders. We love the Commanders. Everyone go. But now you look at it, and reality sinks in, and you're just like, this is not a good team. This is not a good roster. There's not enough mix of young and old. Like, you got a bunch of old guys, and if we're being honest,
and the young guys aren't very good.
Young guys aren't very good.
Like,
Thanks for throwing that in there. They're not very good.
Yeah, Krosky, Moret, he showed some good things, but I don't know. I mean, I still think if Jeremiah's Love is there, I believe they're at 7. You take them.
But it's also your whole season, which to the Jeremiah Love point, I 1,000% agree with you because I'm going to throw in the 2 injuries that kind of depleted your season was Jaden Daniels and Austin Eckler. Are we being so serious right now? You need a running back. You need some weapons. So if I'm Washington, I mean, I think you got to go crazy offensively in this draft. You have to. Jaden Daniels has too much talent. Cliff Kingsbury is too good of an OC for you guys to not have the amount of weapons that you need around an offense coordinator and QB like that.
Well, that's the thing. Kingsbury's not even there anymore.
You're correct. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
And that's the thing. What's interesting too is it was kind of like a mutually parting ways or whatever. They fired him. But like, why? Him and Daniels had a close relationship, and there was some rumblings that Daniels was a supporter of Kingsbury, but I guess there was more votes to get rid of Kingsbury than there wasn't. So that's part of it too. Like, Dan Quinn kind of fired a guy that worked well with Daniels. They had a good relationship. It's I don't know. And maybe I'm talking myself really into this, but I don't think it's crazy to say Dan Quinn's gone after this year, honestly, because you already fired the OC, which that you just reminded me of that. I didn't even think of that. I completely forgot that they actually did the Kingsbury thing.
All about that. He is now with the Rams.
I don't think he's with the Rams now.
Head coach. Wow, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and Commanders OC. I'm not sure who took over. David Blow. Okay. He took over David Blow.
Are you talking about Lions, ex-Lions QB?
Yes. Ex-Lions. NFL legend David Blow.
Oh, they're in for a year.
So it's interesting because, you move on from Kingsbury. That was not very well liked, I know, from the fans. So
oh, wow.
I don't know. That just feels a lot to me. You know what this feels a little bit like? It's kind of one of those Brian Dable situations where they make the playoffs in year 1. There was good vibes. It was a shock. And then they turn around and it's just not the same. Because we see that a lot with teams where year 1, they get the new coach bump. And then after that, and we talked about it too with that Commanders team was the roster. I mean, and I know they brought in a Dafe Owe, but like Javon Kinlaw stinks. I know they signed Leo Chanel, who I really like, but the offense is just not very good in terms of the weapons around Daniels. And I'm not even going to go down the road of Jaden Daniels being RG3 because I know there's some Commanders fans that have already went down that road. If all year 2 he gets hurt, all this stuff, they didn't manage the injury right. But I'm not going to go down that road. But yeah, it's interesting. Another guy that if you would have told us 2 years ago we'd be talking about it, you would have thought we were crazy.
Oh, I just learned something new today. I did not know he was the assistant quarterbacks coach in 24. And
the
Jets even requested him for a head coaching job. They requested him for an opening for Aaron Glenn's staff. Oh, boy. I did not after that.
You know what else is interesting too? Joe Witt Jr. got fired. He fired the DC as well. And I'm just remembering that as well. So Dan Quinn fired both coordinators, Kingsbury and Joe Witt Jr. And Joe Witt Jr., they stripped his play calling halfway through the year. So the more and more we talk about this, the more and more we dig into this, because I completely forgot too. He fired both coordinators, and they won 5 games. Or was it 6 games?
Oh.
It was 5 games. And they were 2-5 even with the starting quarterback out there.
And this team was can't say a few plays. They got blown out in the NFC.
Yeah, they were 60 minutes of football away from playing in the Super Bowl.
This team was in a NFC championship.
And you know what's crazy? The Jets interviewed Joe Witt Jr. for their head coaching job last year, and the guy got his play calling stripped halfway through the season. Tells you all you need to know. It tells you a lot about the Jets. And that brings up my next point. Aaron Glenn's got pressure.
Yeah.
Couple other guys. Glenn, actually only 2 other guys. Glenn, I'll throw in the mix. KOC as well.
Mm-hmm.
In Minnesota. They fired the GM. The McCarthy thing was a failure. So now you bring in Kyler. To me, in Minnesota, this is like a whole 1-year thing. Yeah. It either works or it doesn't. If it works with Kyler, great. KOC and Kyler, maybe there's something there. You kind of get a Darnold resurgence from Kyler. There's that potential. Or it doesn't work and KOC's gone. So I'll throw him in the mix as well. As I don't know if his seat I would necessarily say is red hot, because you do hear a lot about KOC. Supposedly, there was some rumors that I forget what it was. If he wanted Darnold back, or it was the GM that didn't, or whatever. Somewhere along the lines, the Darnold mistake was a disaster.
Yeah, he wanted Darnold back.
He wanted Darnold back, right?
I don't want to botch the GM's name. Well, ex-GM of the Vikings who just got fired. He
Kwesi Adolfo Mensah. I think
did not want Darnold back. And
yeah.
Now look where they're at.
Yeah, and that is not KOC, but still, you already fired the GM. JJ McCarthy was a mess, so we'll see what happens. That's got to be the worst thing possible. As a head coach, like wanting the quarterback back, the GM doesn't. He overrides you, and then the quarterback works out elsewhere. Like you just got to be playing like the what ifs in your head.
And it kind of just shows like I don't want to say a lack of respect, but it's kind of like I have this guy that I have a certain rapport with, and we won 14 games.
Yeah.
Bring me my guy back. He understands my system. I understand how he operates, and you let him walk because you have said this before, and it perfectly describes the situation. That contract or lack of contract and the reason why Darnold walked came down to 2 games. It came down to 2 games where he did not play good because the other games that he played for the rest of the season just did not matter whatsoever. And they let him walk. And now, look, the guy he just won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And now, again, we're talking about revolving doors of quarterbacks. Minnesota is one of those teams. There's a constant revolving door. So now we're talking about, once again, a guy that can step in, have to learn the KOC system. One, if he gets hurt because he's had an injury problem, and just you could have had Darnold.
Yeah. He played 17 good games. He played 18 total games. One of them was bad, and they went off the wild card game.
Yep.
That's what they did. So, anyway, some bold predictions. You want to start us off?
Yeah, because that KOC just led me perfectly into my first bold take, and that is Kyler Murray is going to win Comeback Player of the Year.
Ooh.
And I think he throws for at least 28 touchdowns this season, and they go to the playoffs. I have a lot of faith in this Vikings team this year. I think,
and then let him walk.
And then let him walk. And then Kyler Murray will be in Cleveland next season or something like that. I think they're going to be good. I mean, this is first time in quite some time where Arizona had some decent talent, but he has talent. And if Jefferson does indeed stay, because, some rumors has circulated about him potentially leaving, and Jordan Addison can just stay out of trouble, I think this Vikings team can be very, very good. And I think they will be very good. And I think they make it to the playoffs this season.
I like that. I like that. And now I guess the building off of that bold prediction would be
who misses out?
Or no, who who does Kyler Murray go to next, and then does he win a Super Bowl? Because if he has a big year in Minnesota, and then this could be we could start a trend here with Minnesota where they sign 1-year quarterbacks, they ball out, then they go to another team, win a Super Bowl a year later, and we're just going to start this trend. Darnold was the start of it. So what would be the take for Kyler? You said Cleveland, right? Cleveland's
Cleveland,
Super Bowl.
No, it's not going to be Cleveland. He probably goes over to the Rams. Matthew Stafford retires.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He heads over to the Rams. If Stafford retires, I think Sean McVay potentially also steps away from football for a little. Kingsbury gets that head coaching job. Kyler goes over to the Rams, and they win a Super Bowl.
We're really connecting the dots. It's pretty good.
Dots, yes.
Yeah, the Rams are interesting every year with the way things have been going there. All right, I'll start. I don't know if this is necessarily bold. I'm going to throw a Jets take in there. I'm going to say Glenn's fired by week 5.
That's actually
And I don't know if it's bold, but I don't think maybe making a specific week is a little crazy, but
yeah,
I don't think he's going to last the season. I think he's going to get fired, and I will go and say Frank Reich's the head coach by at least the middle of October. I could see a world where the Jets start out 1-4 and Woody pulls the plug, and I'm going to sit here and be extremely angry because we all called this a year ago and they should have just fired him after 25, but they let him sit here for another half year, and I just don't think it's going to work. And I like what they've done this offseason. I just have no faith in the head coach, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I go at least 0-1 with this prediction, but this is the Jets. Like I could just see it. I could just see this happening. I've been saying this for months. They haven't made the playoffs in forever. I just don't see a award where Aaron Glenn, who is he would be an historic outlier. Like history is so against him. And when has the Jets ever reversed a trend of history in a good way? They always are on the wrong side of history. So to me, this is just another example of the Jets and Woody Johnson being reactive instead of proactive, because they're never proactive. They're always behind on everything. Every decision they make, they're always a year or two late. There's so many decisions that they've made that they're always late on. Heck, even the backup quarterback, like bringing in a veteran offensive mind. They should have brought in a veteran offensive mind last year. Instead, they waited a year, fired the rookie OC, then brought in a veteran mind this year. We've talked about Carson Wentz and Jacoby Brissett. Those guys should have been quarterbacks after Rodgers got hurt, going back to 23. And it wasn't until the next year where they ended up signing Tyrod to be the backup to Rodgers. Like, they're always late on everything. To me, this is another example of them being late. They should have fired Glenn after the 2025 season. And instead, same thing with Saleh. They should have fired Saleh after 2024. They kept him for 5 games. They were 2-3. They fired him. I see the same situation here. And I hope I'm wrong. I want to make that very clear. Because there's some Jet fans that I make these predictions and are like, oh, you're rooting for Glenn to fail. I'm not rooting for Glenn to fail. I'm just making a prediction. A prediction is not what you want to happen, always.
I won't even call it rooting for him to fail.
Like I want the Jets. If I could write a perfect script, I want the Jets to go 17-0 and win the Super Bowl. Is that going to happen? No.
But also, just what realistic fan is just you bring in a guy like, oh, well, I hope he only wins 4 games because he's gone. I don't think any fan base wants to sit through that. But if you have watched, I can't even say if. I'm saying if for the viewers. Because you watched, I'm pretty sure, 17 games of it, and I'm sorry. But for those that watched Jets games, there were some games where you look at that team, Tampa, even though they lost. Tampa, when they fought back and they, had a chance to win it there. Cincinnati, where they clawed back and ended up winning that one off a Brees touchdown. You look at those games, they say, this team, they have potential. This team can be good if they can play 4 quarters of football very well. And then you look at the other, 15 games, and you're like, this team stinks. And you see it starts on the sideline. And we have said this multiple times over the course of our last few episodes. Because you are a great coordinator does not mean you're going to be a great head coach. It's a whole different level of responsibility. You have to answer to a lot more guys. There's a lot more things that go into it. So this is not a shot at Aaron Glenn just being a terrible coach all around. He's not a good head coach. And you see it with the product that's on the field. So I don't think you're rooting for the guy to get his job fired. or
Mhm.
you're not rooting for the guy to get fired and lose his job. But if we're just calling a spade for a spade, he's not a very good coach, and the team showed that on the field. So I don't think it's crazy to say he's gone in week 5 because the Jets have also not done anything from last season going into this offseason, prepping for 26 that makes you say we can turn this thing around and win at least 8 to 9 games.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I think if I had to make a prediction, I'd probably say they're probably a 5-win team. And that's probably maybe even generous after what I was saying. But to me, I just see a world where they just start slow. And they're going to start slow. It's going to be 1-4, 1-5, and they're going to pull the plug. They're going to have to pull the plug because you can't. And this is just why it's so important for Glenn and the Jets to get off to a hot start. You can't win 3 games last year. Look as bad as they did late in the season. Preach that you're building a new culture. The guys aren't going to buy in if you start the season even 0-2. Like, they've got to find a way to come out of their first 2 games at least with a win. Honestly, I don't like to call week 1s must win, but depending on who the opponent is and if they're home or not, you can make the case that week 1's a massive game for the Jets. Just because, like, you can't preach all this stuff, make all these moves in the offseason, roll out there in week 1 and lay a dud. And then turn around and say, oh, we'll be all right. I don't know. Anyway, your next prediction.
Well, there's another. If Glenn's fired, there's another one getting fired. We talked about this guy earlier. It's Todd Bowles. And Todd Bowles is getting fired because the Saints are winning the NFC South this year.
Ooh.
The Saints kind of came along last season. Definitely, they had some very good games. They had some very good stretches where you're just like, Tyler Shuck might not be too bad. We laughed at this guy in the combine and the no-look turnaround pass, whatever he did. But on the field, he was productive. And they made some moves, especially the ETN one. I like that move that they made. And I think Kellen Moore finally, again, only going into the second year, we said he didn't have much last season. I think this season they put it together. I think the Saints win 10 games. And because of that, Todd Bowles misses out, and he is gone after the season.
I like that one. I'm going to really go on a limb here. I have like 2 predictions, but I'm going to package them together. And I agree with your Bowles take there. I think he's probably gone too. After the season, you said, right?
After the season.
All right, I'm going to go on this one's going to be bold. And I don't even know if I fully believe this, but this is why it's way too early. We'll do another episode, maybe July, August, with our final bold predictions. The first one to me is not as bold, but I'm going to make 2 bold predictions. I'm going to kind of package them together because it's about 2 teams making the playoffs that missed the playoffs last year. So I'll just kind of I want to put them together, and I have another bold prediction that I'll reveal a little bit later. I think the Giants make the playoffs. I think the Giants year 1, to me, I think the Giants are this year's Bears. And I've been saying this for a couple months now, ever since Harbaugh got, I was about to say Harbaugh got drafted. Since Harbaugh got hired, can't draft coaches. To me, they scream Bears, like everything about them. Jackson Dart, year 1, showed you some good things, poor coaching. They fire the coach. Caleb Williams, year 1, showed you some good things, poor coach, and they fire the coach. Both middle of the season. They got rid of Eberflus before the year was done. They got rid of Dable before the year was done. They both kept the general manager. Poles stayed. Shane stayed. They brought in a little bit different in terms of who the coach is, right? First-time OC as opposed to a veteran in Harbaugh. But they brought in 2 new coaches. There's talent there. You're getting Neighbors back. We'll see what they do in the draft. I think it's going to be Sonny Styles, which I think is huge. Defensively, they should just be better by accident because the defensive coordinator between Shane Bowen and then getting rid of him was a disaster last year. By accident, they improve defensively with Denard Wilson leading the way. I think the Giants make the playoffs. And this one might be crazy, and I might regret saying this. This might sound, and I probably
the Raiders.
No, the Titans. Titans are a playoff team in 2026.
Okay.
I think Cam Ward takes a jump. I love the Cam Ward. Now, here's the problem with the Titans, and I was sitting here yesterday doing the show or getting ready for the show, thinking about this. The problem with the Titans is their path's tough. Like, I really can't think of because if the Titans are making the playoffs, that's telling you that there's probably 3 teams from the AFC South, right? Assuming the Texans and Jaguars make it, which means there's only 4 teams from the other 3 divisions. So Bills, Patriots, you feel like are locks. So that's 5. And then the North and the West then would only produce 1. So like that's what's really hard. You're telling me the Chargers, Chiefs are missing the playoffs or the Broncos? Like there's no way. No way. Now, unless if the Jaguars or Texans have a regression and there's only 2 from the South, that could be a possibility. And if the Titans are better, maybe there is a regression. But I'm going to go Titans. I love the combination between Cam Ward and Brian Dable. I like the signing of Wan'Dale Robinson. They brought in, I know the receiving core is not great. They're probably going to take a tackle at 4 and get their future bookend tackle for Cam Ward, which is the right move. And, no, they don't pick 4. They pick 3. What am I talking about? I think they pick 3. Yeah, they pick 3. Probably take Francis Mauigoa or Spencer Fano at 3.
No, I think they have 4. I think.
Or they have 4? Is it Arizona at 3?
Yeah, Arizona at 3, Tennessee.
Yeah. Take a tackle at 4. Defensively, Sal's going to have his hands on that defense, and say what you want about him as head coach. He's an excellent defensive play caller. He's going to be calling the plays on defense. I actually think Sal's going to have success in Tennessee. I'm kind of in the minority with Jet fans here. I know a lot of Jet fans think he's going to fail there. I actually think Sal's going to have success there. I think the Titans playoff team. Maybe this will change once we get to August, but way too early. Again, it's bold predictions. Bold. We're being bold here.
This is what I like about bold takes, because now I can tie mine in my last 2 with the one that you just came up with. If we're talking about, okay, what teams miss out? The Chiefs are going to be one of those teams that miss out. The Chiefs are not making the playoffs this season because they're going to start off too slow.
I like that.
And this is a 3-1 here.
You don't believe in Justin Fields?
Not believing in Justin Fields. I don't think there's any belief in Justin Fields right now. So the Chiefs missing the playoffs. Now here goes my other 2 hot takes, bold takes. Chiefs missing the playoffs, Steelers finishing below 500, and Cincinnati missing out and Zach Taylor getting fired. That's only one team in that division getting in. And we're talking about the Baltimore Ravens. So with that going on, you look at the West, it's probably just going to be Denver. I mean, it's so hard to count out the Chargers because the Chargers have been good enough to get there.
And I like the Mike McDaniel with Herbert. I think there's a lot of potential there, but yeah, it's tough. Unless if there's a regression from Houston or Jacksonville, which is possible. I mean, Jacksonville had the year 1 with Doug Peterson and they regressed. I'm not saying Liam Cohen's going to be the same, but you're probably getting rid of Brian Thomas Jr. Not that he played a big role last year, but
if one of those teams miss out, Houston or Jacksonville, who do you think is going to be?
I think it'd be Jacksonville. I think Houston's defense is going to be too good. Even if Stroud is not very good again, that defense by accident can win you. That defense with average quarterback play can win you 10 games. Honestly, I think it'd be Jacksonville.
I think I agree. Brian Thomas is gone, and honestly,
DeMeco. I mean, right now, and I guess the same thing's for Cohen, but DeMeco Ryans, he just makes the playoffs. I mean, 3 years, 3 playoff appearances, 3 playoff wins. There's something to that. He just makes the playoffs every year. So, I mean, I'm sure there will eventually be a conversation with DeMeco Ryans of is he good enough to get a team over the top, because it's only so many years where you can make the playoffs, win a wild card, then lose in a divisional round, right? If we keep doing this for another 3 years, people are going to be like, all right, 6 straight years, great, you got a wild card win, but we got to take the next step now. So, but if there's to me who would I trust, it would be him, because it's 3 for 3.
And I think their roster's a little constructed better. I mean, if Brian Thomas is gone, which the reports are saying he's going to stay, but we know how that usually goes. Who's the running? If ETN had stayed and they were running back that same core, then I'd probably say Houston misses out just because of the play of CJ Stroud. But Jacksonville offensively, I think Travis Etienne being gone is going to be such a vital part of why they aren't as successful with that back. Obviously, great as a pass catcher and a rusher. With no one to kind of take off the weight of Trevor Lawrence, I don't see a world where they make it over Houston.
Yeah, and then that would open up the door for the Chargers. Like, if you had to ask me, I'm very intrigued by the Chargers with Mike McDaniel. And I guess that could have been a bold prediction, like Chargers winning the AFC West. I guess I don't believe that much. But yeah, then you would be AFC East would be Bills, Patriots. I think we're all on board with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all agree the Patriots are going to regress a bit. I don't think they're going to regress to the point where they don't make the playoffs.
11
yeah. And I think the Bills take the division back.
Yeah.
Bills take the division back. Patriots get in. Ravens out of the North. So we're saying Steelers miss it.
They're going below 500.
Okay. South, and I could see that. We'll see if Rodgers is back. Not that that matters. So that's 3 teams. South would be Tennessee, Houston, which is 5. And in the West would be Denver, Chargers. I could see that.
It's not that crazy.
It's not that crazy. You're really just leaving out Jacksonville and Kansas City. And the fact of the matter is, as crazy as it sounds, it's not crazy to leave Kansas City out because they already missed the playoffs last year. And you're going to probably see Justin Fields out there the first couple of weeks. So chalk those up as a few L's.
Yeah. It's not that crazy. I think if any team still can manage to get in, it would be Jacksonville. Because, again, injuries happen. So who knows? One of those teams that we think good to get in might not. I think Kansas City's cooked. And there's no faith in Justin Fields to go out 5 weeks, have them afloat, throwing out a number, and then Mahomes comes back and saves the day. It can't.
Especially in that division, if he's got to face Denver in one of those games early in the year, this is a guy that threw negative 10 net passing yards last year against Denver. The defense was all over him. You're telling me he's all of a sudden just turn on a switch and light up Denver's defense? No chance. No chance. So, yeah. All right. So then, yeah, the AFC East is awful. Like there is zero chance Miami or the Jets even compete in that division this year. Honestly, out of all of the bottom of the divisions in the NFL, I think the AFC East is the weakest.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, there legitimately might be 7 wins combined between those two teams.
Both of those teams will definitely be picking top 4 next season.
Yeah, honestly, like the Jets, I think will be better than the Dolphins.
Yeah,
Dolphins might win 3 games. Jets might win 4 or 5. There's going to be 7 or 8 wins combined. It's going to be awful.
And they're going to beat each other. One of those wins is going to be a split.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. They're going to have to play each other twice. It's going to be awful.
It's going to be a split. Can't wait for that Thursday night football game with Al Michaels.
Yeah. That's prime. That's prime Thursday night football. Malik Willis has like 8 touchdowns and 17 interceptions.
Literally cannot wait.
And we're going to have Kirk Herbstreit talking about his Liberty days.
Yeah.
Jeez. That's going to be the disgrace. Anyway, AFC's football, come get some. And Frank Reich will be the coach by then. It'll be like week 9.
Boy.
Anyway. Yeah, it'll be 1-8 Jets versus the 0-9 Dolphins.
Winner gets Arch. Let's do that. Let's just go with that. Winner gets Arch Manning.
The real winner is the loser.
That's true.
Yeah. One other bold prediction. Do you have any more bold predictions?
Oh, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, I guess I'm out too because I kind of combined the 2 together. So I had 3, but I only So there's my 3. I was thinking of one other. I didn't write it down, but I do kind of like it. Bears make the Super Bowl.
Oh man. Explain more.
They were what? A kick away from making the title game.
That's true.
Caleb Williams in year 3. I know you lost DJ Moore, but he didn't play a huge role last season.
Luther Burden, huge step.
Year 2, Colston Loveland.
Yep.
Year 2, Luther Burden. Rome Odunze, you feel like now could take off as the legitimate number 1. He should take off now. I guess there's still some questions there.
But their defense is good, too. Very good.
Yeah, defensively, they took the ball away more than anybody last year. Led the league in interceptions, led the league in total turnovers. Now, they did lose Tremaine Edmonds. They did lose Nashawn Wright. Both now reside in New York. Edmonds with the Giants, Wright with the Jets. But they brought in Devin Bush, who feels like he coming off of last year, feels like he's kind of ready to hit the ground running. I know he's shown some flashes throughout his career, starting with Pittsburgh and then went to Seattle for a year. But last season, he took off with the Browns. It feels like he's still – Devin Bush, it's crazy. He's still just 27 years old. He'll be 20. He's still south of 30. But he's been in the league now for a little while. But what do you say?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just feel like he's been there for 8 years.
I know. It feels like – because he got in very young. I believe he was drafted, 2019? So he spent 4 years, this is his 8th year. He'll be 28. He got in about 20. So he's still south of 30. It kind of feels like in that defense, he could take off. So there's a lot to like there. Tyreek Stevenson's coming off of a really solid season in the secondary. I know they did lose Kevin Byard, who had a big year, kind of a late career surge, if you will. But you got Montez Sweat, who's coming off of a monster season. I think his second 10 or double-digit sack campaign, first full season double-digit sack campaign with Chicago. I just think there's there's another gear for them. Like there's another level to their game. They feel like they're up next.
I can buy into it. It feels like that.
And that's coming from a Bears non-believer last year. Because I've been the biggest Caleb Williams critic there probably is. But Ben Johnson, he's got me believing.
I think I can buy into that. They feel like the new kids on the block, like everything's fun and exciting. And surely they get better this season.
They should.
I think I can buy into that.
Yeah. That's it, though. I think that's probably all. I mean, Seattle repeating wouldn't really be bold. If we want to get really bold, it would be like Cincy going to the Super Bowl. That'd be really bold. If you say their defense was average, they squeak in and Burrow just takes off. But neither of us think they're making the playoffs, so that's not happening.
What if Dallas gets to the title game?
Yeah, that's bold. That is bold. The Jets winning more than 5 games and Dallas making it to the title game is probably the 2 most bold predictions you can make.
And honestly, that's probably a win-win for the both of us.
And the sad part is neither will probably happen.
Jets have a chance of winning 5 before Dallas gets to the title game.
Yeah, well, the bar is just so much lower.
Well, Dallas is Dallas.
You better watch out for the Frank Reich coaching bump halfway through the year. We'll start 1-4. Frank Reich will come in and we'll win like 3 games in a row, get to 500, and we'll lose like 8 straight.
Jets are gonna be back. They're gonna be right in the hunt when the playoff seedings start. Popping up on the TV. Get Jets fan excited, and
I hope
bottom is just gonna fall underneath.
That's all I'm asking for. Can they be in the hunt graphic?
In the hunt. That's all you need. In the hunt.
Honestly, can we just not talk about draft in September? That's all. Can we not have know the season's over in September? Baby steps.
Mid-October. That's progress. That's something.
Yeah, can we still be alive when the Halloween candy is being given out?
That would be progress.
Sign me up for that.
That would actually probably save Aaron Glenn's job. If they are still in the hunt.
Oh, yeah.
October, late October, absolutely.
If they're like 4-4, that'd be awesome. Yeah. I'd sign up for that any day. If they're 4-4 after essentially 8 games, so 2 months of football, if they're 4-4 going into November, I'll take that any day. Because last year they started 1-7. Heck, even if they're 3-5, you take it. Anything less than that, like 2-6, no. But 3-5, 4-4, 5-3, that's too greedy. But 4-4, can you be 3-5? Like you're not out of it at 3-5.
Very much. Baltimore will tell you that. Cincinnati will tell you that. 3-5, you got to muster up a few wins, and trust me, you are still back competitive.
Yeah, and let me just look here for a second at the Jets' 2026 schedule, or opponents, I should say.
Let's see.
Because I want to throw this out there. All right, can you be 3-5 with the Dolphins coming to town? And you get to 4-5, and then maybe you get the Raiders at home too, and you get a beat up against Mendoza. Like there's a path there where if you could start 4-4, maybe a soft landing spot after that, get to like 4-5. It's not. I mean, it's not impossible. Just win some games. Anyway.
I mean,
the schedule's not great.
The schedule's kind of tough.
Yeah, it's a tough schedule. But I've always said I'm never a big fan. I'm actually doing the opposite of what I usually do. I hate talking about schedule in like March because things always change. I remember 2 years ago during the Rodgers era, the 2024 season, we looked at the schedule. We said, "Oh, that Denver's game's going to be easy. Minnesota's going to be a cakewalk." And sure enough, Denver we lost to. Minnesota with Darnold. You never know what happens. So like we can honestly look at Arizona right now and say, "Oh, they're going to be awful," and them turn around and have like a surprise season. We could look at the Browns and say they're going to be awful and have a surprise season, or any of these other teams. Like maybe Green Bay has a regression. Heck, he just got the extension, but maybe Green Bay has a regression this season and they're not the same. Or maybe Minnesota with Kyler, like you mentioned, has a monster year. So there's always things that change. I think we'll play the Titans on the road week 1. That's been my prediction. Little Robert Saleh, Aaron Glenn action. I bet you that's going to be our matchup. Especially with Jermaine Johnson going over there. They also made the Devondre Sweat trade. They traded with each other twice. You got Saleh over there. I feel like it's going to be week 1 in Tennessee, which I don't like because I just know Saleh's going to get his revenge. I've seen that too many times. Just like Rodgers throwing 4 touchdowns last year, Saleh's going to shut us out.
I can see that happening.
Jeez. Geno Smith throws 4 interceptions. Oh. Just end the season. Anyway, I guess since we're pretty good on time here, I guess we could quickly touch on just the Dan Orlovsky take on Ty Simpson, and we'll close things out. Here's my thing. Hey, they're just, why every year do we feel the need to just throw stuff out there? It's like, why can't we just be okay with Ty Simpson being the quarterback too and just rolling with that? Why every year do we got to make up some nonsense? I even remember going back to, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, going back to the Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson draft. As we got closer to the draft, there was people that started to, it might have been Orlovsky too, that started to bring up, oh, Zach Wilson's actually better than Trevor Lawrence. The Jaguars should actually consider Zach Wilson a number 1. There were some people with that after his pro day, all that stuff. Oh, he's got a better arm. There's a higher ceiling. When everybody knew Trevor Lawrence was number 1, people still had to just make up some nonsense and say, oh, Zach Wilson could be actually number 1. He's number 1 on my board. Now we got Ty Simpson's better than Fernando Mendoza. And then we just have some flat-out Mendoza hate all of a sudden, too. Some people are like, oh, he's more of a product of the team around him. Like, come on. You don't got to love Fernando Mendoza as a prospect, but let's not just crap on the guy all of a sudden.
Let's not, like, the guy didn't have a bunch of, first-round draft picks around him. The only one that might go, and if he does go, it's super late, that's Omar Cooper. Other than that, he didn't have – the guys are talented around him. I'm not going to take that away from it. But we're not talking about a bunch of first-round picks around him. The whole Ty Simpson thing, when I'm looking into it, getting ready for the show, and just going back, because, when we talked about it off air, I remember watching that live when Dan Orlovsky was telling Pat McAfee that Ty Simpson was the better prospect and he's a better quarterback. And then Pat McAfee's like, so the college football playoff just didn't matter? Like, that game not happen? No. Ty Simpson, and I actually learned some things as I'm getting ready. Apparently, had I think it's called gastritis or something like that. Something with the stomach lining, that he was sick playing the college football playoff game. He had lost some weight. All these different factors in that loss to Indiana. But let's not act like the guy wasn't terrible. Not terrible, but he wasn't great towards the end of the season. He started the year out hot. He had 6 touchdowns, 3 picks in the later portion of the season in some of those important games. And he just didn't look good. He didn't really play too good. We can't sit here and take away a guy that won the Heisman and a national championship for a school that has not been relevant in ages. Yep. and we're just going to say Ty Simpson's better all of a sudden. And then you go look at the pro day, and I'm looking at some of the pro day numbers and just what he did in the pro day. And as I'm writing my notes for the pro day, I said, wait, I'm literally Josh Allen if I'm throwing routes on air. The pro day does not matter. Like, you're throwing to guys on air. Like, what he did, who cares? That does not translate to the football field 11 on 11. So let's take away the whole how well he looked at the pro day thing too. Fernando Mendoza hasn't even had his yet either. So I don't know where this take all of a sudden came from, because nobody but Dan Orlovsky. I even know Alabama fans. I work with an Alabama fan who he doesn't even have Ty Simpson as the best quarterback in the draft. And he's watched the guy. Fernando Mendoza, absolutely the best quarterback in the draft. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But Orlovsky needed headlines. Rent must have been due. And that was a way to get some money rolling in, because it's just no way.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. It's typical late March, drafts about a month out. We've talked about every scenario possible. Now let me just make up a nonsense point and run with it and get everybody to react. And here we are reacting to it, obviously. So I guess it was successful, but it's just it just doesn't. Like, Ty Simpson's QB2, Fernando Mendoza's QB1. I think most people agree with this. I do think Ty Simpson probably does go in round 1 at this point. And I think part of that too is I don't think he declares if he didn't think he was going round 1. Like, there had to be some people around the league, some interest that he was getting that told him you're going in round 1. Because why would you declare after just 15 starts in the way last season ended if you weren't going in round 1, where he could come back and really boost up his stock for next year? So, and then you obviously got Dante Moore and Trinidad Chambliss, who were just, I mean, Chambliss was just begging to go back to college football. Please, let me go back to college football. People say, oh, they don't want to play for the Jets. Well, Jets are going to be right there picking the high next year. So I guess you're going to just be living in college.
Hey, all you did was push your life back 1 year, buddy.
Yep.
You better still learn Jets football, because it's going to be.
If you weren't there when we were 3-14, don't be there when we're 4-13. So it's just the way it rolls. But and here's the thing with Simpson. Simpson was very good last year. More comes out about the weight that he lost. Mm-hmm. He was dealing with the sickness. I think he was only on, for a little bit there, he was only on like a liquid diet in terms of just how much the sickness, whatever he had, kind of got to him, where he lost a ton of weight and got under 200 pounds going into the Rose Bowl game. And that's where you saw some of those struggles, because early on last year, there was some talk about him being the number 1 pick along with Mendoza early in the season. And as the season progressed and you saw Mendoza, I mean, geez, the guy won a national championship and outplayed Simpson in the Rose Bowl flat out. So, but Simpson, the biggest thing with him is the inexperience. He's only made 15 starts. This is a guy, to me, that's got to sit, got to learn, not a guy that's going to come and step in day 1 and play. So, anyway, any closing thoughts?
As always, see you guys next week. As usual, same old, same old. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for watching. And can't wait to revisit these hot takes as the season goes on. But we will catch you guys next week, first episode of April.
Yes, appreciate you guys joining us. March is in the books. April ahead here, so looking forward to it. And, next weekend we'll be back. See how many more hot takes there are. We'll get into some more draft coverage. Any other latest news around the NFL, we'll be here talking about it all. So appreciate you all as always, and we'll talk to you next week.